People of Earth, we come for your oceans. Do not resist us. We require all of your calamari.
Hey everybody, I hope you're all doing well in these weird times. I'm working through my pile of shame. I have a bunch of pirate kind of stuff that I've written for my players, and so I'm painting up sea creatures. I have a long list of, big old pile of stuff that I want to paint. But anyways, yeah, I'm seeing some stuff that I already want to fix on these guys, but I'll show you how I got to this point. So most of this stuff is going to be from a game that I got a while ago, and I actually did an unboxing video of it, and I painted up a bunch of these guys too. And then what it is it's called Load, or League of Ancient Defenders, and it's a MOBA inspired board game. It's kind of interesting, first of all, it came with some really cool looking minis. They're resin minis, which is not for everybody, but it came with a ton of sea creatures, that are going to be perfect for, I've used them in D&D for all kinds of stuff already. But the ones that I had painted up were more of melee, kind of frontline cannon fodder guys. I didn't have any casters. I needed some casters. I wanted Sahaugen priestesses and sorcerers and so on and so forth. This mini I got from a lot that I got on eBay, which is from The Other Side. It's a Weird Miniatures new skirmish game, and then this is the headquarters, the leader unit of the Gibbering Hordes is what they're called. And I already painted up a bunch of those guys too, and I did videos about those. One of them was recreating the card art, and then one of them I painted neon chameleons. They're in my minis playlist if you're interested. So first off, I'm going to give everybody a good Zenithal Prime. I know what you're thinking. You're using your plastic, your nitrile rubber gloves at a time like this to paint minis? Yeah, and I'm actually saving the glove. I don't want to run out of gloves, so I'm saving my gloves after I paint with them so that I can use them over and over again. But you can kind of see the different kinds of plastic from these two different kinds of kits. Weird Miniatures, they pretty much use the same kind of plastic, it seems like, for all their games. It's sort of like an ABS plastic. It's very similar to Lego plastic, if you know what I mean. It has a little bit of flex to it, which is nice because if you have plastic spears and things like that, you don't have to worry about them snapping off. With the resin, you very much do have to worry about them snapping off. Resin is way more fragile, but you can see what those little one-piece resin models look like from the game, the board game, versus the tabletop mini game miniatures. But I'm not going to really go into too much detail about how I do a Zenithal Prime, because I did a really in-depth, really extensive video about how I do my paint prepping for minis. I think it's called How to Get the Most from Paint Prep or something like that. I'll put an info link somewhere. But yeah, so these guys, they're all going to get a coat of black, and then they're going to get a coat of a gray or primer, and then I'm going to do a dry brush over that to create some natural looking highlights. But here you can see what my paint prep sort of looks like before I even start really painting, before I start putting any kind of color on the models at all. So I'm just going to go straight into it with the wet palette. A lot of times I would do some ink washes first, and I might use like an inkwell or something like that to do the ink washes, but I'm just going to go straight into it with the wet palette, and I'm going to go ahead and start mixing my game inks, my Vallejo game inks with my heavy body acrylics. So yeah, I think I'm trying to show, like right here, the difference between the game inks and the game color, like kind of the heavy body acrylic and then the game ink in terms of opacity, and I'm mixing those together too, and I'm gonna do wet blending with those on the model and sort of mixing the colors on the palette as I go, and then blending them on the model at the same time while everything is wet to get some nice creamy smooth blends. So I'm going to go ahead and use the game ink to put some kind of general color on the model, and it's not opaque, it's pretty transparent, so you can see the zenithal priming paint job through that. And then also the game inks are going to kind of run into the shadows a little bit more, run into the recesses to create shadows. And then, but I'm using the zenithal, I'm using the airbrush, the prime as a roadmap of where my lights and darks belong, and then I'm going to go ahead and start making, blending those colors together, and then making those transitions where I have my lights and then my darks already in place. But I'm also just trying to put some general color, just some general tone on the models to work from as a jumping off point later if I want to go a lot more kind of in detail, like this is more of an abstract part where you're kind of just putting down some color, and then you refine the details later, but this is the foundation. So I know that everything looks very blue and like one note at this point, but it's more of a jumping off point than anything. So I have an idea, there is a plan with this. I want to do some counter shading, which is it's like a camouflaging technique that's used by almost everything underwater. It's sort of a technique that they use to blend in with their surroundings, where basically their bellies look like the sun, their bellies look like the sky that's over them, and then their backs sort of blend in, like their backs blend in so that they're camouflaged from things that are looking at them from above, and then their bellies are blending in that are camouflaging them from things that are looking at them from below. And eventually she started to get greener and greener as well, and the water got more of a kind of pure blue looking. But I'm going to go ahead and just wet blend her and get all of her highlights and shadows in place, and then I can change the tone, I can change the color later, and I can add to the detail or do different things later, but this is going to be the foundation for all of that. So after I was done doing the shades of blue, then I went over everything with a green tint, just to kind of change the tone and bring it. I wanted her to sort of look like a trout. That was the plan. So next up I'm gonna mix up some kind of reddish brown colors on the wet palette. So I wanted these other guys to sort of look like crabs. So I'm using a mix of some red game ink, some heavy body game color red, and then also some of this model color pink kind of flesh tone color to because I wanted these guys to sort of look like crosses between squids and crabs, basically. So that's what I'm using as my palette on them. So I'm going to go ahead and give these guys a wash of that kind of dark reddish brown all over, just to put some general tone on them. And this mix of the game inks and game color is not going to be totally opaque, and it's not going to be totally transparent. It's going to be somewhere in the middle. So you're going to be able to see the kind of zenithal prime paint job through there, and it's going to already have those lights and darks pretty developed. But then I'm just going to kind of glaze some color over that, and then I'm going to go ahead and wet blend the other colors into those while everything's still wet. But we're still at like the kind of like abstract beginning stages of the paint job. Like this is where we're just kind of putting some color down to work from later. And that's gonna kind of be our like canvas to work from as we go on. So this is not, it's not the finished paint job. It's still pretty fast and loose and abstract. We're not getting into the fine details yet. And I'm going to use that same palette to paint my merfolk caster lady's her scepter too, because I want it to just look like it was grown out of like coral or like a crab shell or something. And it's also just going to have a lot of contrast to her blues and greens. That red is really going to stand out next to the blues and greens of the whole rest of the model. And on these other two, I decided to just have some fun and use that palette to paint them up and just kind of blend together everything else that I had on the palette to paint them. And I decided that they needed some purple, so I decided to make their shadows like a sort of deep dark purple. But I'm going to do the same thing and just make sure that I'm blending things together on the wet palette or on the model too, and just getting some nice smooth blends. And this is still abstract at this point. We're not doing details. We're putting down color and sort of value sketching and just kind of getting ready for the part where we're going to get into the details. But right now we're just putting down color and sort of sketching. and put it down. Um, it's important to take breaks from this stuff and walk away from it and let it dry. You'll be so mad at yourself if you do all that work, painting, and then you decide to start doing some dry brushing, and then you just peel up a big layer of paint. So take the dog for a walk, like get a drink, grab a cup of coffee, tea, whatever you want, but just like put it down for a little while. I've seen videos where people will like use the hair dryer or something on their Mini after they've been working on it for a while. But what if it's not totally dry? What if there's some element that still needs to gel to the primer so it'll stick on there properly? Who knows? So anyways, this is me just coming back to it the next day, and fresh and ready to do some more painting. So anyways, these guys have had a while to dry, and I'm happy with all of the wet blending that I did with the wet palette, and now I can go in there and I can do more washes and more glazing, or I can do more like finer detail stuff without having to worry about peeling up paint from the wet blending or the wet palette work, so I'm ready to go on to the last stage of the paint job now. So as I get into the last stages of the details, I'm going to be using more and more kind of opaque paint. I'm going to be glazing on with color, like doing the thin glazes with the wet palette and stuff, less and less, and doing more kind of opaque like edge highlighting, and just doing some kind of like little detail work to kind of make things pop out, like on the sculpts and stuff. Like with these guys, they're kind of based on like crabs and squid and stuff, so I want to make those little details on the shells and like their like tentacles and stuff pop out, so that they just kind of stand out. You can see all those fine little details. I'm also going to do all of the metallic metal paint that I want to do on these guys now too. And I usually do metallic metal stuff straight out of the pot, and then I like it to be pretty opaque. And also, I don't put it on my wet palette because I don't want to contaminate my other colors with like metal flakes and stuff, and metallic pigments, or even like the water that I'm using to clean the brush out with, because you can get those little teeny tiny metal flakes in there in the water when you're cleaning your brush in between. So I want my metallic metal to be nice and opaque, and then like straight out of the pot. And same thing with black. When I'm doing black around the bases and things like that, I want it to be nice and black and opaque and non-transparent. Like I want my glazes to be transparent. I want my black to be nice and jet black. But whenever I'm doing dry brushing, I always try and make sure that everything is super dry on the model, because dry brushing can be kind of rough on paint. It's really easy to just like peel up paint when you're dry brushing, because you're basically just kind of like scrubbing on your model, Also, this is a really light color, and I want to be very sparing with it, and just kind of make a few little details pop out, like her crown, and then I just want to be very, very light, very gentle with it. Give it a very light touch. For some reason, I ended up doing leather on these guys last. Usually it's one of the first things that I do, and I like to do wet blending with it, but I'm just gonna use some more this P3 kind of leather brown, and then do some, just kind of like wet blending straight on this guy without the wet palette. So anyways, yeah, that's going to be it, you guys. Yeah, I hope everybody's doing well. I hope you're all healthy, and I hope you're all staying sane at home, and paint some minis. Like write a campaign for your friends. Do something fun to keep you from going crazy. That's what I'm doing. Yeah, so welcome to all my new subscribers, and wash your hands, and wear a mask, and just wash your hands for 20 seconds, as long as it takes to sing happy birthday to yourself 2 times. If you liked the video, you guys consider dropping a like or subscribing. I personally have been subscribing to a lot of channels lately in the hope that YouTube will eventually stop trying to shove Trisha Paytas and her fake dissociative identity disorder down my throat. Like I'm waiting for that day when I don't have to hear about Trisha Paytas anymore, just because I look at my feed. But yeah, alright, take care of yourself, you guys.